I thoroughly enjoy covering high school sports and covering college sports up here.
Welcome to the podcast, John Rust.
Welcome to another edition of Rust Rants, where I come on and go off about, well, whatever's honking me off today.
Sports director at KYCA Radio.
We must have a lot of really good pitchers in the Tri-City area this year.
I asked John to join Jen and friends to talk about youth sports.
Do I really want that guy on my team? But the guy who almost made the interception didn't and goes, oh, I can't believe I did that. It's like, yeah, I think that's the guy I want on my team because that guy cares.
What I discover is that Rust is a published author and a history buff who really had to narrow down his dream interview.
I would probably want to interview.
That answer coming up. I hope you enjoy our spirited Q&A.
So I have a really personal question that I need to ask you about.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but guacamole. What's up with the guacamole?
Jen and Friends with John Rust starts now.
How fun is it that I get to interview the interviewer?
I know, not too often I'm on the receiving end of the interview.
Exactly. Don, tell me a little bit about you. Where are you from? Where did you grow up?
I am originally from Hamilton Township, New Jersey, right outside of Trenton. And when it comes to youth sports, I did T-ball growing up. I did Little League growing up. And it was during that time that I found out I really don't have any athletic ability whatsoever. So again, I decided, well, I still love sports. I want to be involved in sports. And even when I was 12 years old, that's when I decided, okay, I want to be a sports reporter or a play-by-play guy or something like that. And of course, I was the kind of kid who, back in the day, like say weekends or at nights, I turn on WPHL 17 out of Philadelphia, watch the Phillies game with two of my favorite broadcasters of all time, the immortal Harry Callis and Richie Ashburn. And I was just like, oh man, these guys are so cool. Then NBC Game of the Week, they had guys like Tony Kubek. They had guys like Joe Garagiola, Vin Scully, who to me is like my broadcasting idol. So those were kind of my big influences. I got an associate's degree in television when I was at Mercer County College in New Jersey. Then I transferred from there to College of Mount St. Vincent, where I got my bachelor's in communications. Then after that, I worked at a radio station in New Jersey for about 3.5 years, New Jersey 101.5. And then in 1996, that's when I came out to Arizona because the radio station here, KYCA in Prescott, was looking for a morning news anchor and someone to do play-by-play for local high school football and basketball. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just move 2,300 miles away. And probably those first few months, I was wondering if I made the right decision. But even a few years later, I was kind of like, wondering about that. But, then my boss at the time, Lou Silverstein, made me the sports director at KYCA. And I think that's where I kind of found my true calling. And I never expected to be working at the same radio station for over 25 years. But you know what? I've grown to really, love the Prescott area up here. There are a lot of really good people up here, people I've become good friends with. And, again, back when I was younger, my thoughts were like, how cool would it be to broadcast for Major League Baseball, the NHL or the NFL. But honestly, I thoroughly enjoy covering high school sports and covering college sports up here and doing play-by-play for high school football, doing play-by-play for the Embry-Riddle sports. So I really found my niche. And along with that, I call it my hobby job because it's not the one that pays the bills. But, when people buy my books, I get money and I do have to report that income to the IRS. So to me, it's like a hobby and a job. But yeah, I also do writing on the side as well. I've written 22 books ranging from science fiction to action adventure to even sports related books. One of my latest ones is You're Called the What? Weird, Funny, and Dumb Team Names, where I just go through a list of professional, college, and high school teams and just the weird names they've come up with. And I just say, hey, this is a really goofy, funny name. I like this. Or boy, this name is really stupid. Why did they come up with this one?
I can just tell that you love what you do.
I would think honestly, you got to do that. I mean, if I'm going like say do play by play or going on the air or doing one of my podcasts at the station, and I drag myself in there and go, I really have to do this again today. It's like why would I want to do that if I was getting no joy out of it? But yeah, I like being on the microphone. I like calling sports. I like interviewing coaches and local athletes and having them on my show, even though sometimes they don't want to be, they're like kind of gun shy about being interviewed. I can tell you this, your daughter is definitely not one of them, since I had her on my show Saturday, which you heard, and
She
she was
had
an
so
absolute
much
blast.
fun. She loved it.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah.
So, one of the things, having had a daughter go through club and now in college, one of the things that I appreciated about sports is that it provided the opportunity for my daughter to grow up, to become more mature. She has to be responsible for her gear, her equipment, her own water bottle, being on time, having the shoes, knee pads, and all of that. What would you say are some really important gifts that sports can give kids?
I think you covered a lot of it there. I think another thing, and I think this really applies especially to the college ranks, is it can teach people to like be around and get along and work with other people from different backgrounds, from different perspectives, from different philosophies. Because I think too much in this day and age, a lot of people they get mad at someone for just having a different opinion. Where when you're thrown into when you're thrown into a sporting environment, like I said, especially in college, you got people from all over. Maybe you'll have some people from Arizona, some from California, some from this part of the country. You might even have people like you look at, say, like the Embry Riddle men's soccer team up here in Prescott, where they've got guys literally from all over the world. So I think it's a nice way to get out of your bubble and meet people who may not think the same way you do, don't have the same background you do, but now you're in a team environment and it's like, you know what, if we want to succeed, it's like maybe we have some philosophical differences, maybe we have different points of view, but you know what? If we want to succeed, we all got to put that aside. We all got to work together. And sometimes you may find out that, hey, you know what? I have a different perspective of life. This person has a different perspective of life. But you know what? We're both pretty cool people, and I wouldn't mind hanging out with them. Maybe we just won't talk about philosophy or politics, but there's a lot of other things we have in common, like the sport we're playing right now. Another great thing for sports is it teaches people how to deal with failure, because even if you have a great game, like like say your daughter went out there, she had a night where she had 17 kills and 21 digs, just playing out of her mind. Well, there are going to be some times in there where maybe she goes to serve, makes an unforced error. She goes to hit the ball, and instead of going over the net, it goes into the net. And, that's going to happen during the course of a game. And there, it's like you have to learn, like, okay, you know what? I messed up here. I have to put that behind me, and I just have to move on to the next play. And the next play, I'll come up with a kill. And I think that's a very important life lesson, because as you go through life, there are going to be times like in the workforce or in your personal life when things aren't going to go your way. And it's like, okay, well, am I going to just like sit around and mope about it forever? Or am I just going to maybe be disappointed for a little bit and then just pick myself up and move on and try to make things better for myself?
Coachable. That's a word I've heard from every coach that I have talked to. They want kids who are coachable. What makes a coachable athlete?
I think the thing that makes a coachable athlete, and I'm going to go into the writing side of my life. I'm also a published author. I've had 22 books, and one of the things that I've done over the past 20 years is I've been part of writers' critique groups. And there, it's like you give, say, like every week you give a different chapter of your book to other people. They look at it, and because it's a bunch of people with fresh eyes, they can say, okay, well, you know what, this works, but this part doesn't work. Maybe if you change this part around, I think that will make this chapter better. I think this will, like, really bring out more of your character. I think it's the same thing in sports, where you have to be willing to listen to what you're not doing right, because the only way you're going to improve is if someone points out your mistakes. Like, hey, you're not, you're swinging this way, and a lot of times, you're not really placing the ball well. You're not really, like, you're hitting it into the net. But if you like change your technique and do it this way, you're going to get more out of it. And I know for some people it's hard. And I've been around people who you could give them the most constructive criticism around, designed to help them, and they will just have a meltdown and turn into like a 5-year-old throwing a tantrum. Where, again, if you really want to improve, if you really want to be the best volleyball player or baseball player or football player, whatever sport you're in, if you want to be the best at that sport, you have to be willing to have someone tell you what you're doing wrong. And they're not doing it to criticize you. They're not doing, at least the really good coaches don't do it to criticize you. They don't do it to make you feel bad. They're doing it because that coach wants you to be better. So again, just being willing to accept constructive criticism.
One of the things that we're noticing, and this is across youth sports, you name the sport, this is happening, officials are leaving the game. And a lot of it has to do with parent behavior. What makes the ideal sport parent?
To me, it's one thing if you just boo or say, come on, man. That's one thing. To me, it's like, that's just sports. It's another thing entirely when you have the parent, and I've seen this, I'm sure you've seen this, when you have the parent like standing up and screaming at every single call, screaming every minute or two. Not only that, but also using foul language, which, I'm sorry, that should be a no in any sport. I don't care what level it is, high school, college, professional. There should not be any profanity used during a game. Some people may read my novel. Let's look. A lot of my fiction novels is laced with what Mr. Spock would call colorful metaphors. But again, that's a fiction novel. That's for, kind of a selective audience there. When you're in a sporting environment, you're in a general audience atmosphere. You've got people from all ages there. If the ref makes a call you don't like, you can just kind of go, I can't believe this. Oh, I can't believe it. Grumble a little bit. That's fine. But when you start, again, like getting up and screaming at the officials, screaming at the coach, even screaming at some of the players, and I've seen that before, along with just ruining the experience for everyone else around you. Also, I would say, think about what you're doing to your kid, because does your son or daughter, standing out there and seeing you do all this in the crowd, they're probably just going to stand there and just go, oh, I can't believe my mom or my dad or my aunt, uncle, grandparent, I can't believe they're doing this. And not only that, but I think that is also going to affect their performance of the game. As Yogi Berra once said, 90% of this sport is half mental. How can that player concentrate on the game when all they're thinking about is how my parent or grandparent or aunt and uncle or whatever relative is up there screaming like a bloody maniac and just embarrassing me?
Yeah. Why do you think a lot of kids are dropping out of youth sports? I mean, by 11, 12 years old, they're already thinking, this isn't for me. What contributes to that?
I think some of it is, what we would see like in Little League, not just Little League, but I think a lot of other places. I think you just said it right there. I think you have some parents who put way too much pressure on the kid. Maybe they were an athlete when they were in high school or college, and maybe they were really good, and they expect the same thing out of their kid. And instead of just letting them have fun, when you're like, say, of little league age, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, just let them go out there, let them play the sport, see if they like it or not. think from the time like the kid is 7 or 8, they see him play little league or youth football or other kind of youth sports, and they say, "Oh, look at what my son or daughter is doing! Wow, they're so great! Wait till they get to high school. Wait till they get to college. They're going to be the most fantastic athlete that's ever been." When they get a little older and maybe they're not that talented, then the parent is going to get frustrated. But again, I think it's just that pressure that they put on the kid, where after a while, they're just like, hey, you know what? This just isn't fun anymore. I don't want to do this, because all that happens is, my mother or my father is out there at the field, at the court, and they're just constantly haranguing me about this play and that play. Not only that, but I'm sure when they go home, they also get it there, where it's like, how come you didn't do this in this situation? How come you didn't do that in that situation? And that is certainly going to kill any interest that they have in the sport. And I think there are other things too. Let's face it, there are a lot of things we have in this world, besides the parent who puts too much pressure on their kid. You have everything going on with social media. You have so much entertainment at your fingertips, be it on your phone, be it on a laptop, be it on an iPad, any kind of device. So I think there are a lot of things distracting kids from competing in sports. Like, maybe they go out there, they play t-ball, or they play youth basketball or something, and maybe they get to a point where it's like, I really don't want to be out here. I'd rather just go on a screen and play some game or something like that. Again, I think it's kind of harder nowadays to get kids involved in those kinds of activities, be it sports, be it, say, music. I saw this on a YouTube video a few days ago. It was a YouTube video about how come pop music is so bad these days. And they said one of the reasons is that, when say like, I was growing up back in the 70s and 80s, we didn't have the internet, obviously. So if we got bored, well, we found our own entertainment. We either found it through sports, we found it through music, we found it through some other creative outlet, where nowadays kids, they can find entertainment, again, just by going to a computer, just by going to a screen. Again, they find entertainment, on a screen, instead of maybe exploring sports, instead of exploring music or writing or some other creative endeavor.
What did we learn about youth sports during the pandemic? What was the biggest takeaway from all of that?
Talking to some of the parents up here during that time, the biggest takeaway is that even in the age of texting and social media, kids still need to be around one another. They still need to socialize face to face. One of the more telling conversations I had was with a parent from one of the local high schools here, and his son was star athlete, 3-sport athlete. Actually, probably football and wrestling were his best sports. And I know I was talking to his father, and he said that his son was pretty outgoing, always hung around with his friends, just really high spirited young man. But then when the lockdowns came and everything was like, well, now you can't go into a classroom. You have to do all your learning on a computer by yourself. Sports were getting canceled. They couldn't do any kind of practices. Everything was closed down. So you can't go someplace and hang out with your friends. And he said that really affected his son's personality. In fact, the comment he said to me was, the son I have now, this isn't the son I had like a year ago. Like I said, even in the age where, you constantly see young people, you still need that face-to-face engagement. You still need that socializing. And I think that was evident during the lockdown, not just for kids, but for adults. I know for me, not having sports to go to, everything was locked down. I saw quite a few changes in my own personality. Like, there were times, and I think everyone can relate to this. I think everyone has their own stories where, everyone was just getting really short-tempered, and things that would be a minor annoyance before the lockdowns, during the lockdowns, that minor annoyance became something where you just want to go, bite the other person's head off.
What has been your most favorite interview of all these years? What is the one that will forever stick out in your mind?
You know what? I got to say, the time I got to interview Lynn Swann, the former receiver from the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, back in the Steel Curtain days of the 1970s when they were winning all the Super Bowls, he came up here several years ago. It was part of a Big Brothers Big Sisters event. That was just such an enjoyable interview. He was such a cool guy, so accommodating. Told some great stories about playing in the Super Bowls, the teammates that he had. And the best thing was, this guy, a legendary receiver, a Hall of Famer. He never felt put out by any of the questions. He never felt like, geez, I got to sit here and I got to, answer all these dumb questions. He seemed to just really enjoy the experience. The one thing that really stuck out in my mind from that interview was like, so Lynn, most athletes, they go their entire career, they've never won a championship. You were a national champion in college. You won 4 Super Bowls when you were in the NFL. And Lynn Swann plants his hands on the table, and there are 2 of his Super Bowl rings. And I stuttered and stopped in mid-question, because those things were just some ginormous hunks of jewelry. I'm just like, whoa, man. But like I said, that was probably one of the most fun and memorable interviews I ever had, especially since Lynn Swann was about as cool a guy as you could have for an interview.
Do you have a dream interview? One person you could interview, who would it be?
Okay, would it be living or dead?
Okay, let's do both.
Okay.
One dead. Who would have been the dead person?
Oh, man. Because honestly, for the dead person, it wouldn't be sports related, because I'm also a big time history buff.
Okay.
And I think honestly, I think it would be a toss up. I really can't make up my mind right now. It would be either Sir Adrian Carton de Weert, who was a British soldier who fought in the Boer War, World War I, and World War II. This is a guy who got shot in almost every part of his body during World War I and survived. And in World War II, when he was 60 years old, was in a plane crash, got captured by the Italians, put in a POW camp, escaped, got recaptured. And then by the time he got back to that prison, he was... the Italians had already surrendered, and he was helping to negotiate some of the surrender amendments or whatever. And because he was injured so many times in battle, he was called the unkillable soldier. That would be such an awesome interview. Either him or any of the members of the Night Witches, which was an all-female bomber squadron who served the Red Air Force of the Soviet Union during World War II. They also happen to be the subject of one of my favorite Sabaton songs, Night Witches. But they basically flew these rickety old biplanes that looked like you could knock them out of the sky with a rock. And they harassed the Germans so badly that they came out with an order that any German soldier who shot down a night witch would get an Iron Cross. So I think it would be cool to either interview Sir Adrian Carton de Weert or one of the Night Witches. Living, You know what? Okay, I know now. I can't believe it took me this long to get here. I would probably want to interview Martin Brodeur, the goaltender from the New Jersey Devils, because I will admit, I am a complete and utter Martin Brodeur fanboy simp. He is my all-time favorite player in the NHL. This because of him, the New Jersey Devils, one of my favorite teams along with the Flyers, the Devils won 3 Stanley Cup titles with him in the net. He holds just about every NHL goaltending record you can think of. Either him or Floor Jansen, the lead singer for one of my favorite bands, Nightwish. I because I'm also a big time fanboy of hers too, because she's just the most phenomenal singer out there. So I got ties on both ends here. But
Okay.
well, that goes to show you what kind of tough question it is.
So you've got a range here. You've got goals. You've got
Mm-hmm.
people you still need to talk to.
Yeah. Yeah. I did actually meet Floor Jansen one time after a concert at the merch table, but all I did was just say, "Hey, Floor, that was a great show. Can I get a picture with you?" Okay, thank you. So I really didn't get a chance to interview her, but at least I met her. So that's something.
So it's funny that you like history because I love going to Prescott and learning about all the history in the area.
Yeah, Charlotte Hall Museum is kind of is a cool place to
I
go to,
love
especially if
it.
they're having some special events. Yeah. And even sometimes like when you're at Prescott High School, because they have their Wall of Fame there, their Hall of Fame thing, and it's kind of neat to go down there and see a lot of the athletes who, were playing like when I was still a little kid in New Jersey, or some of the athletes that, I actually interviewed while they were there. So it's kind of neat looking at that wall. In fact, like one of the guys whose plaque is hanging at the Prescott Hall of Fame is John Denny, who was a Cy Young pitcher for the Philadelphia Phillies in 1983. And of course, when he was with the Phillies, well, obviously I watched him pitch on TV all the time. And it wasn't until I came to Prescott that someone said, oh yeah, John Denny used to go to Prescott High School. I'm like, wait a minute. John Denny, the guy who was on the 83 Phillies and won the World Series, who I like grew up watching. It's like, seriously? He's from Prescott? I also got to interview him a couple of times too, and that was pretty cool. So yeah, and of course, when you're talking about all the parades, like the Christmas parade, the Frontier Days parade, again, just or even just walking down Whiskey Row, and like how many of the buildings have been there for decades, even up to a century. So it's almost like you can turn any corner here in Prescott, and you'll find some piece of history, especially with all the buildings and houses we have here that are on the historic register.
Kind of getting back to youth sports a little bit. Do you have any advice for new families, even in any sport, starting out? What would be your advice?
Let them just have fun at first. Let them just explore if they like this sport or not. Try not to put any pressure on them. I mean, I think it's important for you to try to get your kids involved in sports, but again, once you get them involved, it's like you got to step back a little and just see if they enjoy it. And if they really enjoy it, well, then great. Then encourage them to keep on going. Be it in middle school and high school. I think another one, and I know I've talked to a lot of other coaches about this. I brought this subject up on my show. Is be careful of specializing in one sport. I think it's very important to let your kids explore other sports, take part in other sports, even when they get to high school. There's nothing wrong with having your son or daughter be a 2-sport or 3-sport athlete, because the thing that I've noticed sometimes is some of these kids who just focus on one sport from the time they're like 8 to the time they get to high school. By the time they get to high school, a lot of times they're burned out on that sport. And I've seen this especially in softball, because there have been a couple of girls in this area who I knew they could have just been absolute beasts going to college, but they played softball so much during their just from the time they were little kids, that by the time they were a senior in high school, they were like, I'm just done with this sport. I've played it so much and I just don't want to play it anymore. And to me, it's like, well, better that they find out when they're a senior in high school instead of finding that out when they're a freshman or sophomore in college, because they're not going to help themselves. They're not going to help their college team, and they're certainly not going to help the coach that recruited them. So I would definitely recommend letting your kid explore other sports, letting them take part in other sports. That way, they're not so burned out. Not only that, but sometimes playing one sport can help you in another sport. Just talk to wrestling or talk to football coaches who try to encourage their kids to go into wrestling. And I've seen wrestlers on football teams who, put those wrestling techniques to good use when they're making tackles. Track and field is another one. Track and field can help you improve your speed and agility in both football and soccer. Even swimming. Swimming can certainly, help develop your muscles better. In fact, there was a guy who was a two-time state champion wrestler at Prescott High School who was also one of the top swimmers at Prescott High School as well. So I think that's the big thing. Don't force your kid to specialize in one sport. Let them explore a multitude of sports.
Emma played a variety of sports. She's the 4A state champion in javelin, which is kind of funny. I teased her. She was out there throwing sticks and playing in the sand. But anyhow, two things I noticed about being a multi-sport athlete. One, injury prevention, because you do have to use different muscles, and that really, I think, is really, really important. And the other is when Emma played basketball, she learned a different defense. And she learned how to see the court in a different way, which I really think helped her in volleyball. Mm-hmm. So, I totally agree with you about the multi-sport. So I have a really personal question that I need to ask you about.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but guacamole. What's up with the guacamole?
Coconut. Can't stand it. It's just the most vile food that has ever existed in history. Like honestly, I would just rather like lick the carpet or something than eat coconut. Like, yeah, okay, here's how much I hate coconut. Like on my list of things I hate, which is actually kind of pretty lengthy, I would probably put coconut somewhere between the Dallas Cowboys and modern pop music.
Hey, whoa! I'm down because I don't like the Cowboys either, so I'm there with you. That's an impressive list right there for you.
Hate. I know.
That's an impressive list.
That's our other guest, Emma Barber, also is Emma Barber from the Embry-Riddle volleyball team. She's also, I don't know, impressed, disappointed in my taste or whatever.
I'm not really even sure. I mean, one of the first things my mom ever taught me how to make was guacamole, and recently I've been cooking with coconut oil, so I can't.
That's what trips to Hawaii do. It brings out the coconut.
It really does.
Come on, John.
Really
maybe you need to go to Hawaii.
I wouldn't mind going to Hawaii, but I ain't going to eat no coconut there.
I don't know. We'll see where you go with that one.
It happens.
It does happen.
See, I don't know why I invited these two on my show today. All they're doing is just ganging up on me and making me feel sad for myself now.
It was planned.
It was planned.
I need my safe space right now. My safe space where I can go listen to death metal or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Now that's right up your alley, at the top of your like list.
Oh, definitely.
Right there with the Phillies. I got you.
Oh, geez, what? I should have known this is going to come up. I just, maybe it's because I grew up in Jersey. I don't know. I just look at it and I just get repulsed, just like I do with coconut.
I was laughing so hard when they were talking about a pile of coconut. I thought that was pretty funny.
And I have got that filed away in my head. So maybe like on one of my podcasts, if there's something that comes up I really don't like, instead of saying like it's a bunch of garbage, it's a bunch of Bravo Sierra, what I like to say, I'll just say, oh, that's just a pile of rotten coconut right there, man.
Well, gosh, I had so much fun talking with you today. Do you have any parting advice for parents or kids or athletes or anything that might help tie in?
Probably the parting advice would be, just if you're going into the recruiting process, don't just depend on your stats. Don't just depend on whatever highlight reel you send out to coaches. Always keep it in the back of your head that there could be someone up there in those stands who's watching it, not even up on the stands, but also maybe watching you on a live stream. Just think that there are always going to be eyes on you. So how do you want to proceed with that? Make sure you have a good attitude, make sure you have good body language, make sure you have good grades, because that's becoming more and more important, even at the NCAA Division I level. So just be a well-rounded person and always be mindful of how you're acting on the court or on the field, and be mindful of how you're acting around your coach and your teammates, and just people in the stands in general, and how you're interacting with them.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, thank you for having me on here. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. Take care. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too, Jen. Have a good one.
All righty. Bye.